Most women live as if their lives are on layaway, waiting for the right man, the right moment, the right permission slip from fate before they begin to breathe fully. They move through years with half their power dormant, as if their soul's birthright is always just beyond the horizon. But Jung warned us, the psyche is merciless with delay. Whatever is repressed, whatever is postponed, does not vanish, it grows in the shadows, festering, demanding recognition. To wait for life to begin tomorrow is to betray the self that is crying to live today. In every woman, there is an ancient tension. The maiden who waits versus the queen who chooses. The maiden is conditioned to delay, to dream of a perfect season where circumstances align, where love arrives pure and untainted, where worth is granted from outside. But the queen is the one who learns that the best time of life is not a faraway chapter. It is the very breath you hold in this moment. She knows the hourglass does not wait, and every grain of sand fallen into the past is a silent reminder. You are not meant to postpone becoming. If you close your eyes now, you might feel her whisper, the woman you could be, watching you hesitate at the threshold. She is already crowned, already free, but she grows restless each time you barter your soul's urgency for safety. Each time you tell yourself, later. And isn't that the great lie? That happiness, confidence, love, or even your own radiance will bloom only when someone else declares you worthy. Jung named it projection, the desperate search for what already exists inside you, cast onto others like shadows on a wall. The more you seek in them, the more you lose in yourself. But imagine what happens the moment you stop postponing. When you seize the raw truth of this hour, that there is no better time than now, no safer future waiting, no ideal love that will finally unlock you. You are the key. You are the gate, and the world responds differently to a woman who has chosen herself. She no longer looks at time as something to endure, but as clay to be molded. She no longer begs for attention because she radiates presence. The man who meets her feels it, the vibration of someone who is not waiting for rescue. He is either elevated or repelled, but never indifferent. This is why Jung insisted that individuation is not reserved for sages or mystics. It is the ordinary woman's task to call back her projections, to own her shadow, to recognize that her unlived life is not waiting in the hands of a man or the approval of the world, but already seated within her. The best time of your life begins the moment you stop apologizing for existing, the moment you stop treating your own worth as a negotiation, the moment you understand delay is self-betrayal. The queen does not postpone her reign. She takes the throne the moment she decides she is already worthy of it. And yet, the resistance rises like a tide. For when a woman dares to step into the immediacy of her own life, the old voices within her cry out. They whisper that she must wait until she is more beautiful, more accomplished, more validated, more loved. These whispers are not her truth. They are echoes of centuries of conditioning. The collective, unconscious sculpted by a world that has taught women to defer themselves endlessly. Jung knew well that the unconscious is not just personal. It carries ancestral memories, unhealed wounds. The ghost of the mother who also waited, the grandmother who silenced her own fire. Every hesitation is haunted by their shadows. But the shadow is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to awaken you, to see your own doubt as a signal, not a sentence. To recognize that when you feel the urge to wait, to postpone, to look for permission, it is your psyche begging you to reclaim what was exiled. The very energy you hide in hesitation is the same energy that could light your path forward. What if every delay you've lived through was nothing more than a mirror, showing you the cost of postponement? What if the fear of being too much or not enough is the very doorway to becoming whole? It is a dangerous thing to wake up to your own power, for it threatens every structure that has benefited from your compliance. The moment you say, "Now is my time," the illusions of dependency shatter. The man who once fed on your uncertainty begins to sense he cannot control you. The friends who only knew you as a reflection of their comfort may resist your change. Even the world will test you with obstacles. Because individuation, this process of becoming whole, is always a path of fire. But fire is the element of transformation. It burns what is false. It tempers what is real. To step into your life now is to allow this fire to refine you, to strip away the masks you've worn for approval, And the mask is heavy, isn't it? You have carried it so long that sometimes you've forgotten the shape of your own face beneath it. Yet when the mask falls, when the raw, authentic self emerges, you will see what Jung meant when he said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The Stoics, too, remind us that life is not in the future but in the present. Seneca wrote that the greatest loss of all is the loss of time, squandered in hesitation. Marcus Aurelius whispered to himself each dawn, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." If death is always near, then waiting becomes the cruelest prison. Look at yourself as you are in this instant, not as you wish to be one day, not as you were yesterday. See the woman sitting here, breathing, alive. This is her kingdom. This is her moment. She is not a rehearsal for a future self. She is the self, and the world will bend to her when she finally claims it. And yet, even as she begins to awaken, the psyche tests her with illusions of escape. The human mind is cunning in its defense against transformation. It tells her, you need more time. You need more certainty. You need someone else to walk beside you before you can step forward. These are not truths, but clever disguises of fear. Jung described this as resistance to individuation, the ego's desperate attempt to keep things predictable, even if predictable means suffering. For the ego fears death, but the soul demands rebirth. A woman who postpones her becoming lives in fragments. She may appear vibrant on the outside, but inside there is a dull ache, the ache of unlived potential. She distracts herself with romance, with approval, with endless plans for a future that never arrives. Yet underneath, she knows something essential has been exiled. The shadow grows restless, knocking on the door of her consciousness in the form of anxiety, dissatisfaction, envy, even rage. These are not flaws. They are messages. They are her forgotten fire trying to burn through the numbness. You know this feeling, the sudden surge of longing that strikes in quiet moments. The thought that says, this cannot be all there is. I was made for more. That voice is not arrogance, nor is it vanity. It is the self, the greater totality of who you are, trying to guide you beyond the small prison of what is familiar. Jung believed that the self calls each of us toward wholeness, whether we resist or not. To ignore the call is to remain in exile from yourself. To answer it is to step into the fierce, terrifying, liberating truth. The best time of your life is already here. Notice how men react differently to a woman who claims this truth. The man who thrives on control will shrink away, for he cannot seduce her with crumbs of attention when she is already full. The insecure man will retreat, sensing that her light exposes his shadows. But the man of depth, the man who has faced his own unconscious, will stand in awe. He will not try to contain her, because he knows the wildness in her is the same wildness that leads him to his own soul. This is why your timing matters. To wait is not neutral. To wait is to feed illusions, to attract the weak, to reinforce the cycle of postponement. But to live now, in this breath, in this skin, in this imperfect, luminous moment, is to magnetize everything that resonates with your true essence. You stop chasing and begin attracting. You stop begging and begin choosing. You stop surviving and begin reigning. The woman who chooses now discovers that time itself bends for her. Opportunities appear. Synchronicities multiply. People who had overlooked her suddenly feel her presence in the room. This is not magic in the trivial sense. It is the psychology of wholeness. When you embody your fullness, the world cannot help but respond. And so, she learns that the most dangerous illusion is tomorrow. For tomorrow is a thief that steals today. And today is all she has, and it is enough. There comes a moment in every woman's journey when she realizes that waiting is not innocence, but bondage. To wait for permission, for validation, for the right constellation of external events is to remain chained to a story that is not her own. The archetype of the sleeping maiden lingers here, lulled by the promise of some prince who will awaken her, as if her vitality depends on someone else's kiss. But Jung taught us that the unconscious is not so merciful. What you fail to claim consciously, life will deliver to you as fate. The longer you sleep, the more brutal the awakening. This is why so many women reach a breaking point. A betrayal, a loss, a collapse of what once felt certain. And suddenly the life she postponed bursts into demand. She sees with clarity. There is no rescue, no future self arriving with perfect timing. There is only now, and either she will inhabit it or she will abandon herself yet again. That collapse is not cruelty. It is initiation. Just as alchemy requires the breaking down of lead before the gold emerges, the soul demands disintegration of illusion before the truth can rise. And what is that truth? That the life she longs for is already seated within her. The love she craves is a mirror of the love she withholds from herself. The power she envies in others is the shadow of her own unclaimed authority. When she stops projecting her essence outward, when she gathers the scattered fragments of herself, something miraculous occurs. She becomes whole. Not flawless, not untouchable, but whole. And that wholeness is more magnetic than any mask she has ever worn. It is then that she notices the subtle shift in her relationships. No longer does she beg for scraps of affection, because her worth is not up for auction. She stops explaining herself endlessly to those committed to misunderstanding her. She stops clinging to those who cannot rise to meet her. Instead, she stands in her own gravity, and the world orbits differently around her. Men of shallow intent drift away, for they sense they cannot play their games in her presence. But men of depth, men who have also wrestled their shadows, feel drawn like moths to her flame. Do you see how powerful this is? The very act of claiming your life now, not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, rearranges the entire fabric of your existence. The external shifts because the internal has shifted. Jung said that what we resist persists, and what we embrace transforms. By embracing herself in this moment, she transforms not only her own destiny, but the lives she touches. To wait is to live in exile. To act now is to return home. And the woman who comes home to herself is unstoppable. She becomes the embodiment of presence itself, the living reminder that the best time of her life was never waiting in the distance. It is here, it is now, and it has always been. There is a sacred rebellion in the woman who no longer bargains with time. She understands that to postpone her becoming is to starve the soul, and the soul will not be silenced forever. Jung spoke of individuation as the call to unite all the parts of oneself, the conscious ego, the shadow, the anima, the animus, into a living wholeness. This is not a gentle process. It is a confrontation with every mask, every false identity, every comforting lie that has kept her small. The moment she stops waiting, she begins the descent, the plunge into her own depths, where truth waits like buried treasure. And in those depths, she meets her shadow, the parts of herself she has disowned. Her anger, her desire, her ambition, her grief, rise like ghosts demanding recognition. For years, she may have silenced them, fearing that they would make her unlovable. But the paradox is this: only by embracing the shadow does she step into her radiance. A woman who owns her darkness is no longer controlled by it. She carries her wounds as wisdom, her scars as symbols of survival. No man, no society, no circumstance can use her vulnerabilities against her, because she has claimed them as part of her throne. This is why the timing of now is everything. To delay shadow work is to hand the keys of your psyche to others, allowing them to play with your unconscious triggers. But when you face your shadow today, when you refuse to hide from it, you cut the strings of manipulation. You become sovereign, and sovereignty cannot be postponed. Notice what happens when a woman embraces this sovereignty. Her presence sharpens. She speaks less, but says more. She moves with a kind of quiet authority, not needing to prove herself, not seeking validation in every glance. And the world reacts. Men who once tested her boundaries now find themselves confronted by an immovable wall of dignity. Friends who once drained her strength feel the distance of her new clarity. She no longer invests in what does not invest in her. Her very energy becomes selective, and in that selectivity, she discovers her true power, the power of choice. You, too, feel this truth stirring within you. The hesitation you cling to is not safety. It is sabotage. Every time you tell yourself later, you are feeding the part of you that fears your own greatness. And what is greatness but authenticity lived without apology? The moment you stop bargaining with the present, you step into a life that feels like fire in your veins. You attract experiences, relationships, opportunities that mirror your strength, because you finally embody it. The Stoics would call this alignment with nature. To to live according to the essence of who you are, not according to the illusions of who you should be. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is slipping away moment by moment, and to waste it is the only true tragedy. A woman who embodies this truth does not waste her life in delay. There is a sacred rebellion in the woman who no longer bargains with time. She understands that to postpone her becoming is to starve the soul, and the soul will not be silenced forever. Jung spoke of individuation as the call to unite all the parts of oneself, the conscious ego, the shadow, the anima, the animus, into a living wholeness. This is not a gentle process. It is a confrontation with every mask, every false identity, every comforting lie that has kept her small. The moment she stops waiting, she begins the descent, the plunge into her own depths, where truth waits like buried treasure. And in those depths, she meets her shadow, the parts of herself she has disowned. Her anger, her desire, her ambition, her grief rise like ghosts demanding recognition. For years, she may have silenced them, fearing that they would make her unlovable. But the paradox is this: only by embracing the shadow does she step into her radiance. A woman who owns her darkness is no longer controlled by it. She carries her wounds as wisdom, her scars as symbols of survival. No man, no society, no circumstance can use her vulnerabilities against her, because she has claimed them as part of her throne. This is why the timing of now is everything. To delay shadow work is to hand the keys of your psyche to others, allowing them to play with your unconscious triggers. But when you face your shadow today, when you refuse to hide from it, you cut the strings of manipulation. You become sovereign, and sovereignty cannot be postponed. Notice what happens when a woman embraces this sovereignty. Her presence sharpens. She speaks less, but says more. She moves with a kind of quiet authority, not needing to prove herself, not seeking validation in every glance. And the world reacts. Men who once tested her boundaries now find themselves confronted by an immovable wall of dignity. Friends who once drained her strength feel the distance of her new clarity. She no longer invests in what does not invest in her. Her very energy becomes selective, and in that selectivity, she discovers her true power, the power of choice. You, too, feel this truth stirring within you. The hesitation you cling to is not safety. It is sabotage. Every time you tell yourself later, you are feeding the part of you that fears your own greatness. And what is greatness but authenticity lived without apology? The moment you stop bargaining with the present, you step into a life that feels like fire in your veins. You attract experiences, relationships, opportunities that mirror your strength, because you finally embody it. The Stoics would call this alignment with nature, to live according to the essence of who you are, not according to the illusions of who you should be. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is slipping away moment by moment, and to waste it is the only true tragedy. A woman who embodies this truth does not waste her life in delay. She lives as if each hour matters, because it does. And so, she rises, not tomorrow, not someday, but here, now. This breath is her coronation, and she steps into it without fear. The awakening continues like a storm and a sunrise all at once. For the woman who embraces now does not simply shift her habits, she alters. The architecture of her psyche, the old scaffolding built from someday collapses, and what remains is raw, unshakable presence. Jung spoke of this as individuation's fire, where every false identity is burned away until only essence remains. That essence is not meek, not hesitant. It is fierce, magnetic, luminous. She begins to notice how much of her life was wasted on the pursuit of validation, the carefully crafted images, the endless rehearsals of conversations, the desperate search for signs that she was enough. But validation is an addiction with no satisfaction. The moment you chase it, it slips further away. The woman who waits for others to affirm her worth is like a prisoner begging her captor for food. The woman who embraces now feeds herself from within, and her fullness starves the very system that once kept her bound. This is the alchemy of immediacy, the shift from asking to declaring, from waiting to embodying. A woman in her power no longer seeks permission. She knows that her presence is not negotiable. She understands that the world reflects her state of being. If she projects lack, she attracts exploitation. If she radiates sovereignty, she attracts respect. Men sense it instinctively. Her energy is not one of need, but of abundance. She becomes the flame, and the moths reveal themselves. But here lies the test. The moment a woman claims her life now, the world often resists. Old patterns attempt to return. Old lovers test the boundaries. Old insecurities whisper in the dark. This is the unconscious at play, the psyche testing her commitment. Will she revert to waiting, or will she stand in the immediacy of her worth? Every temptation to delay becomes a trial of her sovereignty. To pass through it requires courage, but courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that fear will not dictate timing. Imagine her walking into a room. She does not need to be the loudest voice, nor the most adorned figure. Her power lies in her very presence. Others sense it, though they may not understand. This is a woman who is not waiting for life to begin. She has already begun. She has already chosen. Her aura tells the story of someone who knows the best time of her life is now, and it disarms the shallow while it magnetizes the profound. This is why both Jung and the Stoics converge in their wisdom. To Jung, the self demands embodiment now, the shadow integrated, the projection reclaimed. To the Stoics, the brevity of life demands urgency now, for to postpone living is to waste the only resource you cannot recover, time. Together, they form a mirror for the modern woman, reminding her that her sovereignty, her magnetism, her liberation cannot be stored away for later. Now is the battlefield, now is the throne, and the woman who claims it discovers that she has always been free. Freedom, however, is not gentle. It asks of her everything she once thought she could hide. To live now means she can no longer cling to the comfortable illusions that once kept her numb. The woman who embraces this moment must face her loneliness without distraction, her desires without shame, her grief without repression. For a time, it may feel like breaking rather than rising. But this breaking is the birth canal of the soul. Jung warned that the unlived life does not simply disappear. It festers in the unconscious and shapes our fate in ways we do not understand. The only way forward is through, and the through begins here, not someday. The maiden in her would prefer to wait for rescue. But the queen knows that rescue is an illusion. No man, no external savior, no future version of herself is coming to carry her into fullness. It is she alone who must decide. And when she does, something astonishing occurs. The archetype of the queen awakens. Not the queen who rules through fear or dominance, but the sovereign who reigns through presence, clarity, and choice. She is no longer pulled by desperation, but guided by discernment. And men, too, feel this shift. The kind who feed on hesitation lose their hold. The manipulator, the narcissist, the one who thrives on a woman's self-doubt. He finds nothing to grasp, because she is no longer available to be controlled. She is no longer waiting for crumbs of affection, for half-hearted promises of tomorrow. She demands now, and in that demand, she filters the shallow from the profound. The man who has faced his own unconscious feels drawn, because her sovereignty mirrors his own potential. The man who fears himself retreats, because her light exposes his shadows. Do you see the danger of waiting? Every day you postpone your becoming. You invite those who benefit from your delay to remain close. But the moment you decide, the moment you embody now, the false connections dissolve. Waiting attracts those who keep you waiting. Presence attracts those who meet you where you stand. This is why individuation is not merely a personal process, but a relational revolution. As she awakens, her entire field of relationships reorganizes. She stops chasing men who cannot see her, stops investing in friendships that drain her, stops performing for a world that misunderstands her. Instead, she becomes magnetic to what is aligned, because she herself has aligned. Her very existence becomes a mirror. Shallow eyes cannot look long at her, but souls of depth are compelled to draw nearer. The Stoics, too, echo this truth. Epictetus declared that freedom is found not in waiting for external events to favor you, but in mastering your own perception, your own choice. To wait is to surrender your agency. To live now is to take it back. And so she takes it back, not tomorrow, not when the conditions are perfect, but in this imperfect, holy instant. The woman who understands this truth does not tremble in her sovereignty. She walks forward, knowing the path is hers to create. The crown is already on her head, and her reign has already begun. The crown, once claimed, begins to reshape her entire existence. At first it feels subtle, a different way she holds her posture. The silence she allows instead of filling the void with apologies. The calmness in her eyes when others expect her to beg or chase. But this subtlety grows into a force that cannot be ignored. Jung called this the integration of the self. When the fragmented psyche gathers its lost pieces, the individual radiates wholeness. It is not a performance. It is not a role. It is essence revealed. And this essence carries an unmistakable gravity. She no longer bends herself to fit the fragile egos of others. She no longer reduces her fire to soothe those afraid of heat. She no longer pretends her desires are small. Instead, she allows herself to be vast. She embodies the paradox of the feminine unconscious, both nurturing and untamed, both soft and unyielding. Men sense this, but so do women, and both are transformed in her presence. For she is no longer a reflection of someone else's need. She is the mirror of what is possible when a woman refuses to delay her life. But make no mistake, this sovereignty is not without solitude. Many will fall away when you stop waiting. Those who depended on your hesitation, those who benefited from your self-doubt, those who only knew you as compliant, they cannot follow you into this now. And that loss will ache. You will wonder if claiming yourself was too costly. Yet this ache is the price of truth, and truth is always worth more than illusion. The Stoics understood this, too. Seneca warned that the most tragic waste is not of money or possessions, but of time, because time is life itself. To delay is to forfeit the only currency that cannot be restored. The woman who rises in the present may lose people, but she refuses to lose herself. And that choice is the essence of empowerment. Have you ever felt the shift inside you when you stop waiting for someone's call, someone's validation, someone's apology? Suddenly, the silence feels like freedom rather than rejection. Suddenly, the absence of attention feels like space rather than loss. This is the alchemy of presence. When you live now, you detach from the addictive chase of what might be and root yourself in what is. And what is, though imperfect, is enough. From this soil, everything changes. Opportunities emerge, not because she strives harder, but because her alignment makes her magnetic. Love flows not because she chases it, but because she embodies it. Even pain transforms, becoming a teacher rather than a tyrant. She realizes that nothing in her life was wasted. Even the years of waiting were seeds of contrast, preparing her to know the taste of freedom. And so she stands taller. She speaks slower. She chooses with precision. She is no longer a woman rehearsing her life. She is a woman living it. And in that living, she discovers what was true all along. The best time of her life is not coming. It has come. It is here. It is now. The woman who chooses now becomes dangerous in the most sacred sense. Not because she seeks to harm, but because she cannot be controlled. The world has always feared such women. Women who no longer barter with their time. Women who no longer crave approval. Women who refuse to be postponed. They are the embodiment of Jung's principle that the unlived. Life haunts us until we claim it. And when they finally claim it, they break the spell that held generations captive. For centuries, the feminine has been taught to wait. Wait to be chosen. Wait to be loved. Wait for the right age. The right role, the right permission. But when a woman awakens to the truth that she is both the chooser and the chosen, that waiting was always a prison of the psyche. She liberates not only herself, but all who come after her. She becomes an archetype in motion, the queen, the lover, the warrior, the sage, no longer fragmented, no longer waiting for integration. She is integration. And here is the paradox. The very thing she thought would come only after waiting, love, respect, opportunity, begin to arrive the moment she stops. For what the psyche represses in delay becomes magnetic when lived in the present. A woman rooted in now does not chase. She draws. She does not plead. She embodies. Her relationships transform because she no longer operates from lack. Her career shifts because she no longer plays small. Even her body responds, carrying itself with the unmistakable vitality of a soul unchained. Do you see how every postponement was a thief? How many years did you give to waiting for someone to notice you, for conditions to improve, for fear to fade? Every year given to waiting was a year given away. But the instant you choose the present, time itself bends. The unlived years are not wasted. They become fuel. The fire of regret transforms into the fire of resolve. You stop running from the past and begin to use it as the wind behind your wings. Jung understood this alchemy deeply. What is rejected in the psyche does not vanish. It becomes power once integrated. And so it is with time. The years you mourn as lost are not lost. They are compressed potential, waiting for you to ignite them with presence. And when you do, your radiance doubles, triples, burns brighter than it ever could have if you had lived timidly all along. This is why living now is not reckless, but revolutionary. To embrace the moment is to embrace power. To claim your life now is to dismantle every lie that told you to wait. And in doing so, you embody a truth so profound that no one can ever take it from you. That freedom, love, and fulfillment were never in the future. They were always in your hands, waiting for you to open them. The woman who has opened her hands, who has stepped into this sacred now, is no longer a prisoner of potential. She is potential realized. She is the very embodiment of presence, and presence is irresistible. Presence, once embodied, changes not only her inner world, but the entire landscape of her destiny. She begins to walk through life as though time itself bends to her. Because in truth, it does. When a woman stops waiting, she stops leaking energy into illusions. She gathers every fragment of her attention, every ounce of her longing, and brings it into the sharp edge of this moment. That focus is electric. People feel it without knowing why. The undeniable magnetism of someone who is fully here. Jung called this the return of the projections, what she once scattered onto others. Her hope, her need, her power, she now reclaims. The man she believed would complete her no longer holds her essence hostage. The career she thought would one day validate her worth no longer defines her identity. The friends she once depended on for confidence no longer hold the keys to her self-respect. Every piece returns, and with it, her energy multiplies. The result is not arrogance, but radiance, not desperation, but sovereignty. And sovereignty creates a profound shift in attraction dynamics. Have you noticed? The woman who waits always attracts those who benefit from her waiting. The man who fears responsibility, the one who thrives on control, the one who cannot give fully. He finds comfort in a woman still postponing her power. But when she steps into now, those men scatter. They feel her presence like fire against their skin. They cannot play their games because she has ended the game entirely. In their place come those who are ready, not perfect, not without flaws, but awake. Men who have wrestled their own shadows, who have faced their own mortality, who understand that life is too brief for illusions. Such a man does not shrink from her sovereignty, but meets it with his own. He is not threatened by her presence because he has cultivated his own. Together, they do not complete one another. They amplify one another. But notice, whether such a man appears or not no longer dictates her timing. For the woman who lives now does not need a partner to confirm her reign. She may welcome love, but she does not wait for it. She may invite connection, but she does not delay herself until it arrives. Her life is already full, already blooming. The partner who enters must add to her kingdom, not define it. The Stoics, too, would nod here. Marcus Aurelius warned himself, never to waste the present in longing for what might come. Life is always slipping away, and the only mastery is mastery of this moment. When a woman lives by this principle, her very existence becomes art. Every choice becomes deliberate. Every boundary becomes clear. Every day becomes sacred. The woman who stops waiting is not simply living. She is reigning. Her very being becomes a declaration. The best time of her life is not a distant horizon. It is the ground beneath her feet, the breath in her lungs, the fire in her soul, now. The rebirth is not loud, though it resounds in silence more powerfully than any scream. It is the quiet realization that nothing outside her has changed, yet everything within her has shifted. She still lives in the same body, walks through the same streets, speaks to the same faces, but her gaze is different. Her posture, her presence, her decisions radiate a certainty that no external force can shake. Jung wrote that the greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This moment, the now she once avoided, is the very threshold of that privilege. And it is here that she understands the paradox of desire. The things she once chased so feverishly, love, approval, recognition, arrive not because she has hunted them down, but because she has released her grip. To live now is to stop clutching, to stop begging, to stop bargaining. What is meant for her flows toward her, because she no longer strangles it with desperation. Her magnetism comes not from pursuit, but from presence. Yet presence demands discipline. The ego will always tempt her with delay. It will whisper, when you are slimmer, wealthier, calmer, then you will deserve to live. But the woman who has tasted sovereignty recognizes these whispers as illusions. She does not postpone her joy until her body changes, until her status shifts, until her life aligns with some external checklist. She knows that the best time to dance is now. The best time to love is now. The best time to breathe fully is now. For what else is there? Tomorrow is an idea. Now is existence. And so she sharpens her boundaries. She no longer entertains the half-hearted, the hesitant, the manipulative. She no longer grants her sacred time to those who squander it. Her energy becomes rare, and because it is rare, it becomes precious. Men sense this in her presence. She is not a woman to be trifled with, for she does not fear being alone. Her solitude is not a wound. It is her fortress. From that fortress, she does not chase. She chooses, and her choices are deliberate, sovereign, uncompromising. This is the feminine power that terrifies the world, a woman who needs nothing, who waits for no one, who lives fully in her own flame. History has always tried to tame such women, to brand them dangerous, to shame them into compliance. But their danger lies only in this. They reveal the illusion of waiting, and in doing so, they awaken others. The Stoics would recognize her. Marcus Aurelius would nod to her, for she embodies his reminder. Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. She does not debate her worth. She enacts it. She does not hope for courage. She practices it. She does not wait for freedom. She lives it. And in this way, she becomes untouchable, not because she is invulnerable, but because she has nothing left to postpone. Her life is hers, not someday, not later, now. And as she lives in this now, a serenity begins to bloom, not the fragile serenity of denial, but the steady peace of alignment. She is no longer at war with time. She no longer treats her present as a waiting room for her future. Instead, every moment becomes sacred, every breath a quiet affirmation. I am alive, and this is enough. Jung taught that the psyche longs for wholeness, not perfection. Wholeness is not about polishing yourself into flawlessness. It is about embracing every fragment of your humanity. And in embracing it, the war ends. The woman who once delayed her joy until she was enough now understands she has always been enough. The scars, the failures, the mistakes, the detours, these are not evidence against her. They are her crown jewels. Each one is a mark of survival, a sign of strength. What she once tried to hide becomes the very fabric of her authority. For a woman who owns her story cannot be shamed by it. She turns her wounds into wisdom, her shadow into gold. And in this alchemy, she becomes luminous. Not luminous in the shallow sense of prettiness or charm, but luminous in the way that others feel seen in her presence. Men sense it. This is a woman who will never beg for crumbs, never confuse attention with love, never wait for permission to shine. Women sense it too. Her radiance awakens something in them, reminding them of their own sleeping fire. She is not simply living for herself. Her choice to live now sends ripples through the collective feminine unconscious, breaking centuries of silence. This is the true revolution, not marches or speeches, but presence. A single woman who refuses to postpone her life embodies a freedom that reverberates across generations. She is the living answer to Jung's warning that what is left unlived will haunt us. By living now, she breaks the haunting. By refusing delay, she heals not only herself, but those who come after her. And notice the peace that grows when she lets go of the chase. She does not frantically seek love because she embodies it. She does not fear being unseen because she sees herself. She does not anxiously pursue the future because she has finally met the present. The result is not passivity, but power. Stillness becomes strength. Silence becomes command. Presence becomes sovereignty. The Stoics would call this freedom from externals. the ability to rest in what cannot be taken from you. Seneca wrote that true happiness is found in self-sufficiency, not in the shifting tides of fortune, and she has found it. Her worth is no longer at the mercy of others. Her timing is no longer dictated by fear. Her life is no longer a rehearsal. She is here. She is whole. She is free. And the best time of her life is not ahead of her, not behind her. It is this very breath, this very heartbeat, this very now. And in the culmination of her journey, something miraculous unfolds: detachment. Not the cold detachment of bitterness, but the warm detachment of freedom. For the woman who lives now does not cling. She does not clutch at people, at outcomes, at futures that cannot be guaranteed. She moves with the quiet assurance that what is aligned will remain, and what is not will dissolve. Jung called this the individuation of the soul, the final reconciliation with the self, where desire no longer dictates desperation, and fear no longer dictates delay. She is no longer consumed by the hunger to be seen, because she sees herself. She no longer bargains with love, because she knows love is not earned. It is shared, chosen, allowed. She does not perform for the world, because performance is a cage, and she has outgrown cages. Instead, she breathes fully into her own presence, radiant in the ordinariness of being alive. And that radiance is more irresistible than any mask she ever wore. Watch how men respond to her now. The ones who cannot meet her depth drift into the shadows, repelled not by cruelty, but by her clarity. The ones who see her sovereignty feel either humbled or inspired, for they recognize the rare power of a woman who no longer waits. She chooses her path with the same ease she chooses her companions, not out of fear, not out of lack, but out of alignment. This is the woman who knows. The best time of her life is not something another person can give her. It is already here, within her, pulsing through her veins. And so, she becomes unshakable, not because she controls all outcomes, but because she no longer needs to. She is not chasing destiny. She is embodying it. She is not begging life to begin. She is living it. The past no longer imprisons her. The future no longer intimidates her. She stands rooted in the eternal present, where joy, love, and freedom are not someday dreams, but lived realities. The Stoics, too, would bow to this truth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. The woman who has integrated this wisdom lives as if every breath is precious, as if every choice is a declaration of sovereignty. She wastes nothing. She chases no one. She regrets little. She reigns. This is the rebirth. Not a crown given by others, but a crown claimed within. Not a throne borrowed, but a throne built of her own presence. She understands at last that waiting was the only enemy, and now she has slain it.